to cover the cure for this, which is...
And that's what people don't get, I find.
Also, barriers made by other people. You were saying earlier, I want to come in and say the difference between arrogance and confidence is...
It's really hard for some people to understand, is the...
Anxiety is the conspiracy theory of the self.
The weirdest part about it is... Before we start, thank you so very much for listening. You cannot imagine how great it is to have you all here. Most of you have already subscribed. If you haven't yet, please do us a favor and click that button. It helps us to make more of this podcast. Now, let's dive right into the episode.
I'm glad you exist.
If I can.
So can you. That might be treasure. Fantastic. I thought that we'd do some sort of... Sorry, that was me clicking my knuckles, grim. What's today's topic? It's imposter syndrome.
Ah, I'm oddly familiar with that.
Indeed, I think a number of people have been through it, myself included.
For me, it's actually my second time I'm going through it.
Tell me more.
Tell you more. First time, I was promoted to lead the entire team at my company at the time.
Ooh.
And I actually generally thought I didn't deserve it. I was just lucky to have that role, which sounds oddly like the definition of imposter syndrome, doesn't it?
Yes, incredibly like the identity of imposter syndrome. Funnily enough, that's my imposter syndrome. That when I went into my current role, I did the interview. I used examples from my volunteering, and they said, "You've been talking about team leading quite a lot. You must have come to the wrong interview, so we're going to re-interview you as a team leader." And I was like, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. And they focused on the fact that I'd done aftercare things when we've had to let go of volunteers before.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, yeah, go for it. We choose you. But they took a good month to let me know. And I was like, great, poverty, love it so much. But yeah, and you can bet for the first... It took about 3 years to get over that. But tell me about, because you only told me about your first.
Yes, so the first time around, it took me like a good 2 months until I pulled off the first project successfully. And that kind of was validation that, no, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. And I didn't get that job out of pure chance. I actually know my crap in a way. I shall choose that word. Why wouldn't we, right? Unfiltered.
Another word for knowing your crap is being an expert in your field and acknowledging that. Carry on.
Now happening again as I somewhat recently started my own company. And from one day from another... Thank you.
I am exceedingly proud of you, and I want anyone who's listening to be proud of you as well.
I'll be here all week. But from one day to another, it's just like that. And now you're a consultant, and you have clients, and you speak to them, and they pay attention, they take notes, and you are just expected to have answers to sometimes oddly complex, weird questions. But yeah, it feels weird because there was no training, there was no interview process, there was nothing. It's just I decided to do this on my own, and clients showed up and now are paying for me to give answers to questions that they have. Yeah, it's weird, and sometimes even there was one particular time after week 3 or so where I generally felt like a bit of a fraud. As in, who the hell am I to think that I have the answers to these questions? Who am I to give advice on these topics that I consult on now? But the weirdest part about it is all the feedback I've gotten, and even like going through meetings and listening to myself giving answers to some of these questions, it's like, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. Like, it does make sense, and it is, I don't want to kind of gloat or anything, but it does sound intelligent, as in, yes, this makes an awful lot of sense, and there was thought put into this answer. But my brain doesn't believe it.
I want to come in and say the difference between arrogance and confidence is that confidence is knowing you've got the goods. Arrogance is lying about that.
Ah, that's a nice way of looking at it, yeah.
I think one of the things, because I Jiminy cricketed your shoulder, because I remember you saying these things over the last couple of months.
Yes.
And I was like, the reason that these lovely people want to give you money for your opinion, Alex, is because you have worked in your industry for over a decade.
Yes.
Tried and tested. You have material evidence that you're good at what you do. So I remember having those conversations with you and just being like, go Alex, go, go Alex, go.
It's like things are pointing in the right direction. The feedback is genuinely encouraging and positive. It's just brain doesn't believe it. It's like, oh, they're just being nice or not necessarily thought through feedback, I guess. But I even actively asked for it from some of my clients, and all of them came back, yeah, that seemed good. So it's all the right signs are there. And I mean, I had my first bill paid, and I was like, yay, I have my first bill paid. I got money for giving some answers to some complicated questions, providing some input, providing pointers, joining meetings, and then that is enough, apparently. I don't know if it needs proving to myself rather than anything else. Then there's the more sinister train of thought, which is how much of this insecurity comes from my previous job. That wasn't exactly a most encouraging, positive, reinforcing environment. I genuinely, like, during the time I worked at it, was a time where I questioned my own ability quite considerably. But now here we are, you know.
That speaks volumes to the person who is your manager or team leader. I say team leader. The fact that you feel like that, you didn't have a team leader, you had a manager.
Well, yeah, if that.
Yes, if that, you know, like the ghost of one. And unfortunately, you know, when we don't encourage our employees and we don't grow them, you have to realize when you're in a business, what does that business want from you? One of those things is retention. They don't want you to go anywhere. So by telling you you're amazing, that can boost you, but it also can add a feather to your wings. If you're constantly telling someone they're brilliant or they're underpaid or underappreciated, you're showing them the door and the light. And conversely, if you're not nurtured, you're not told that you can do things, then also, the person's going to go and seek those things out that are missing. It is, you know, it's not my place to tell the private sector how to, you know, run its business, but there has to be some sort of gentle balance between these things, between encouraging someone and also treating them with the kind of respect. Because I've found a lot of people have stuck around in places where I've been managers or I've been leading projects because they like how they're treated, because they haven't been treated that way before. And I find that really depressing about planet Earth. Yes. Gosh, I can't be the only person who treats people with respect. I mean, if you've been an employee, you know how you like to be treated. And why would you not, as a manager, if you have the luck of being the next rung up, why would you not treat the people that you have been assigned to guard, to protect, nurture and grow? Why would you not treat them with respect? Why would you not? I find the symptom of a good manager is actually, a good leader is those people around you going up to your level. But I work in public sector. So it's kind of, you know, we're a bit more team playery, I think. I can't remember. Oh, no, I can remember the private sector. It was garbage. It was a bit cutthroat for my liking. I'm very much a cuddly person. My HR comes with a hug, a consensual hug.
It's an interesting one because the first imposter syndrome situation is when I took on the entirety of the team, 2 departments. It led to a point where a year down the line, people had job offers with more money. And they turned them down because they liked the way we run things and we did things. And it came down to one simple doctrine that I imposed on my team leads, as in this is how I measure your success, which is how happy is the person that you manage? How much do they grow? And how much do they effectively are willing to give to the person next to them? Which isn't necessarily you, which is me, which isn't the company. It's the person in the team. And I simply title it People First, and it's not my invention by any stretch of the imagination. I read books. But it worked stunningly, because without changing any of the perks, without even any money, we had pay rises, but nothing significant. Our retention skyrocketed, as in I grew the team and I lost like 3 people in 3 years compared to previous turnover rates where the team looked completely different every year and a half. So that was the situation that I found myself in. And then people were like, hey, Alex, you do this. And it's like, okay. And it just comes down to a very simple philosophy where to each team lead, I managed 7-8 people, is you now have the responsibility of doing 8 times as much. And your projects come second because your first duty is to those 8 people. And your job is to remove anything that is in their way and to give them all they need to perform to the best of their possible ability. To their natural best is what I called it. Again, not my words. I borrowed them from one of the writers I find quite helpful in that, Simon Sinek. You probably have heard him before. But that's where my inspiration came from. And I saw the results. The other really interesting one is we had quarterly surveys, and it basically gave you a score of how great you and how happy your team is, which, as you can imagine, wasn't particularly great, especially in the beginning. So our net promoter score was 3.5. And by the time I left, which was almost 3 years later, we were at 8.9.
Nice.
We grew to 50.
Wowsies.
So that was kind of my first result of, okay, I know how to do this, and my philosophy works. It bears fruit. And now, because I'm on my own, there isn't an awful lot of feedback coming my way. There is no manager I report to. There is nobody who hired me. I hired myself in a way. I founded a company that I now run. The only feedback I can get is from my clients. And while they seem all happy so far, is they also are not the experts in what I do. Naturally, that's why they hire me, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
So their feedback is what you provided us has been helpful, and we thought about these things and we're doing these things now, which I consider good. But brain doesn't necessarily get to that point yet.
No, of course. And depending on your setup, because I don't want to, tell people that everybody's brain is the same, because we know that not to be true. What I want to say is, anxiety is the conspiracy theory of the self.
Yes.
Because we can do so many things, and you've got to reflect on your own abilities. You're getting tangible feedback now from the people that you've worked with who are giving you notes and honesty. And to be honest, I don't think that you give an air that you couldn't handle critiques. And also, if people are giving you money, they have the right to critique you. And that's one of the things I said to you was that why would they waste money on you when they could spend it somewhere else? And also, you're not going to build up a good company reputation by being dishonest, which is something I know you not to be. But the important takeaway from that is that we have to negotiate our own headspaces to get where we need to be, to acknowledge that. I'm currently in a place in a space where I need to acknowledge the skills that I went through, because my imposter syndrome went out the window and I had to manage teams through COVID. And my way of team leading is very people-centered, to make sure that people feel empowered, listened to, that feel important, that my priority is to them before the objectives that were set. And it feels a bit kind of like, oh, well, you're just going to be a people pleaser. You're not going to do anything tangible. But no, because what you do is you imprint your work ethic on the people that you're taking care of. And if they can see that you're trying your hardest to help them, to grow them, to nurture them, they go, my goodness, you're spending a lot of time. Because I used to do a lot of research on different programs throughout my business, different opportunities, saying, you've got that skill set. If you want to run a CV through me or an application, I'll help you through it. And also, if you need the opportunities to grow your skills, I'll throw you into different situations. We'll look at what we can do to get you into the places, to give you those examples, to get that experience, so that when you talk about it, you talk from a place of honesty, truth, and experience. If you're doing that, those people, they don't just become your team, they become your extensions of self. Allies, yeah. And also, when I'm in a team, I live and die by this. We are all wolves together. We're a pack. Anything that happens to the person that I'm looking after happens to me.
Yes.
There are professional boundaries, of course. You need to have those. You need to be very sensible of professional boundaries, because you cannot, if you're managing 16 people, if you're taking a cup from each well of sadness, you're going to drown. But in that, you're getting this supportive, you've got this, everybody becomes an independent thinker. There's a lovely little, it's a business model where they draw the pictures and explain the theory, and it's about somebody who was on a submarine, and the submarine person was like, well, I'm a submarine captain, but I don't really know what goes on the ship. And he goes, why? Because, I talk to my people. I communicate the idea to the people. They know the specs, they know the job, and they manage upwards and tell me how to run the submarine. And I'm given power of certain, responsibilities. If we fire the big weapons, if we do this, stuff where somebody has to be made accountable. That's me. That's my job. But they know their jobs better than I do. And if I give them autonomy and I imprint myself onto them, they become a submarine of thinkers. And I love that. That's bread and butter. That's lovely. we've talked about a number of different things. They cover the cure for this, which is the belief in the self. Believing in yourself is incredibly important. And I just want to say to anyone hearing my dulcet tones, I believe in you. I've never met you. I don't know what you've done, but I'm an encouraging voice. And I believe in what you're doing. I believe that you can succeed. Because you've already won the hardest battle you'll ever have to face. And that's the battle of actually being on Earth. Being here. Because there have been galactic scenarios which have meant so many of us aren't here today. And also, if we think about every other planet that isn't Earth, so far that we know of, has not survived or had the conditions to create life. So you're very privileged and very, very lucky to be on Earth alive at all. So well done. And what are you going to do with that success? What are you going to do with that go forward? And remember that your first barrier is yourself. If you can defeat that, if you can talk to it or compromise with it, you might have imposter syndrome. But also, when we wear a new pair of shoes, they don't necessarily fit, or they might feel a bit painful, but you wear in those shoes, and you could be wearing those shoes for years, and they might be your best shoes. They might define you. People might go, wow, what great shoes, because you took the first steps in an uncomfortable shoe, and it changed to suit you.
For some reason, Brian Cox came to mind. He said it very facetiously, but he said there's only one interesting question in philosophy. What does it mean to live a finite life in an infinite universe?
I think we've talked about the diamond of truth before.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How many versions of yourself exist? And also, the barrier that says, no, I can't do this. There are going to be... I look at things, but there are things that are big and scary that say leader. That sounds like a scary job. It really does. It sounds like a scary job. But also, I deserve more. Because I think I do a fantastic job. And I'm told by others I do a fantastic job. Those who measure me. And even if I weren't hearing that voice, I can talk from a place where I've had that voice, and I realise that some people don't have that luxury, haven't had their first job, have had jobs where they've been talked down to, underappreciated, discriminated against. That's a real hard obstacle to overcome. As somebody who has faced discrimination in interviews, I'm going to tell you, it hurts, and it leaves a scar. It will feed imposter syndrome. When somebody takes you down a peg for something that you cannot control, that's horrid. It's actually one of the most vile gifts somebody can give you. But the best revenge is to not be defined by it. Not let it stop you. Make you more determined than ever to get to where you think you should be. Why can't you? Why can't you be there? What would help you be there? What else? You're going from A to B. What are the steps? You've got point A, point B. How close are you to point B? So if I say, I want to earn 10 grand more than I currently earn. So I'm at A, I'm at B, I need to get to B. What are the steps involved? And it's taking those tiny steps. Because tiny steps are easier. Because rather than saying, you need to get that qualification, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to get that experience, blah, 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 blah. If you can do the tiny things, if you can do the small things, like taking on an extra responsibility or doing something to build yourself in the right way, then you too can grow and get there. But it takes a lump of confidence. It takes a self-belief. But that's kindling. And it's the spark. So it's all you need to start that fire within you. And experience is just logs. More logs and logs. So as that flame grows and grows, it consumes those logs, and you shine brighter, burn brighter, and that's the flame that ignites the future.
So what you're saying is you were your own limit?
Yes, sometimes we can be our own barrier.
There was something else that you said earlier that came to mind, is about the title leader and what that means. I've met a few people that are like, I want to be a manager, and it's like, do you really? Do you actually understand what that involves? It's like, I want the title, I want the money. It's like, yeah, but that's not what it is about. You get the title and the money for a reason. Because you are suddenly in the service of all the people that they report to you. And that's what people don't get, I find. Or it's really hard for some people to understand. Is I'm a manager now, I'm telling you what to do, you work for me. It's like, no. You work for them. You are now in the service of your direct reports.
I can see now, having been through the process, having gone and now looking back, I can see now why I did an all right job. Why I did a good... No, not an all right. That's my own barrier. That's my own imposter syndrome talking. I did a smashing job. I kept groups of people happy, sane and safe during one of the most trying times that we've ever known. And that's because I managed volunteers. I myself was a volunteer, and I looked after groups of volunteers. And you're not paying them. They're giving you time. There's no gain. So you have to think about ways of making sure that those people come back and volunteer with you again. Because when your entire organisation is volunteer-based, nobody's getting paid, you realise that power, because power's the real kicker, people who use power to manage other people are bad. I'm sorry, I'm just going to come out straight away and say it. People who use power or exercise it or make you think that they have power, no. I think that's incredibly toxic in managerial situations. No, I don't have to do the things you say because you control the money.
Isn't there this lovely line in The Dark Knight where Bane, I forgot the name of the millionaire, but he puts his...
Bruce Wayne?
No, the other one that dies. Bane puts his hand on his shoulder and the millionaire goes, I paid you money. And that gives you power over me.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, the status... Oh, of course, if we were playing by the standard rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how that works, sweetheart, and that's why you're dead. I think it was Rupert... Was it Rupert Thorne? No, Daggett.
Daggett, that's the one.
Daggett. I like Batman. I like to watch it. So those barriers of the self. Also, barriers made by other people. You were saying earlier you had a manager that was stifling you. The expectations of others can create a very neat benchmark or height that you can't jump to. And that people who think that they put things out of reach, thinking that, the person will grow and jump and try to get higher and higher and higher. Some people are built to respond to that. Other people aren't. You can make a dream an impossible dream. You can rob somebody of hope by doing that. You can make them leave their job and start their own company like that. Quelle surprise.
True story.
You can also make people, by not fostering their skills or, giving them opportunities and things, you can make them feel discontent. Because I went from a managerial job into something that I don't manage people. And it gives a bit of a void because you've got all that experience of doing something and now you're doing something that isn't that. And it's like, I realised today that in my current job, I am not needed. I take on lots of extracurricular activity within my job role so that I can get a sense that I'm needed. And is often the case that I am very much needed by those other roles. I feel very much, that a lot of me is going to waste in that role. But in that headspace, I don't have that barrier that says that I shouldn't be going for things. I'm still going for things. Also, I'm using that time to go, okay, I'm in this place, I want to get higher, what do? I will find what I need to do in terms of experience, and I will have those experiences so that I can call upon them when I need to. In a way, I'm managing myself, or I'm leading myself. Because ultimately, you will find those places where you need to be the voice that guides yourself. I think that's probably especially true for yourself, Alex.
I was just thinking that, yeah. It's like, yes,
I could see it.
There's nobody here to tell me what to do. It's all up to me.
But I hope that you have the confidence, and as much as I'm not qualified to say the next thing I'm going to say, but I hope that you realise that you have the skills, the determination, the mindset, the ability to do this. And if you ever need reassurance, turn to those closest to you. Come to me first.
You are probably very top of the list, mind you.
I'd hope so, because it would be awful if we just did this podcast and just like, off screen the bastards to each other. But needless to say, tear down your barriers by any ways possible. And my fondest wish for you is that your imposter syndrome is short-lived. Open your ears to the criticisms of others, be they positive or negative. React, change, adapt. Be all that you can be. Because The world deserves you at your best, doing your full potential. That's what we need right now, is people unlocking their full potential. Because when we are doing that, we are more conscious of everything around us, which makes us improve our environments, help those who have less than us, and all the other wonderful things that come from actuating the self. And then we can teach it to others. Anyone who is gifted enough to actuate their full potential, it is the duty of them to teach others how to do it. And I hope that you get to teach me one day.
You've been listening to the I'm Glad You Exist. If I can, so can you podcast. If you want more from us, you can find us on all the usual social medias. Like, subscribe, follow us, which is the best thing you can do to help us continue making this podcast. And please, never ever forget, you are loved.